Yu-Gi-Oh is one of the best shonen jump manga and anime, and by far my favorite tabletop game. One thing I found interesting when looking at the cards, a lot of vanilla monsters not only have stories written on the card text, but also have stories told through multiple pictures found on the cards. Many cards have this, and I'll get to them eventually, but one card in particular caught my eye many years ago. And that card was called Gagagigo. His story was also tied in with another card archetype as well, known as the Charmers, specifically with the Water Charmer area. Don't worry, we'll eventually get to the Charmers too, but Gagagigo's story was being told before the Charmers had a fully fleshed out story. So let's get into his story, and surprisingly, Gagagigo's story is more tragic than you might think, but it does come with a happy ending. So let's get started. We begin not with Gagagigo's story, but with the story of Area the Water Charmer. To give you an abridged version of their story, the Charmers would be taught how to use elemental magic power from Doriato, an elemental magician, and Area would resonate with water. The Charmers would then be sent to find a familiar of their attribute. Area would find a little lizard known as Gigabyte at the edge of a sea. Gigabyte at this point would be a bit of a troublemaker, as he was caught stealing some fruit, as seen in the card art Compensation Exchange. Area would save him, and then he would soon form a bond, and he would become her familiar. In Gigabyte's card description, it reads, "He has a tranquil soul, but carries a destiny that one day his heart shall be tainted by evil." The word tranquil suggests his heart hasn't yet been swayed to be good or evil. He would travel and grow with her, and even befriend other small creatures, as seen in the card art, The Law of the Normal. Now, although not story relevant, there were some other hijinks he got into in Revenge of the Normal and Return of the Normal. While serving under Area, he eventually grows stronger. Though it is implied but never stated directly, it is shown that he maybe tried to gain power through the desert, as shown in the card art Triangle Power. This would allow him to grow into Gigabyte. He then would grow even further, as shown in Awakening of the Possessed Gigabyte. And as he grows, he eventually grows strong enough that she decides that he is strong enough to go into the world on his own. This was shown in the cards Familiarly Possessed Area and Unpossessed. This is where Gigabyte would finally grow into the card that inspired me to do this video, Gagagigo. And this card description reads, "This young evildoer used to have an evil heart, but by meeting a special person, he discovered justice." Now, keep in mind, this is not describing Area. This is for two reasons. One, Area found Gagagigo when he was just a young Gigabyte, and at the time, his heart wasn't tainted by evil yet. So this describes a time later down the timeline, where he met two major people in his life, Freed the Brave Wanderer, and the Marauding Captain. Before we get there though, Gagagigo leaves to become stronger. While on his quest, he runs into the Goblin Attack Force, who challenges Gagagigo, but ultimately loses as they decided to fight on a frozen lake, as shown in the artwork Iceborne. Now, Freed and Marauding Captain both have their own stories to tell as well. However, just like the other cards, we'll get to those later, so for now, let's see where Gagagigo fits into all of this. One day, Marauding Captain, seen in the card Marmiting Captain, is making food for Freed. However, Gagagigo gets hungry after having just finished all of his training and fighting the Goblin Attack Force, and of course, some things never change, as Gagagigo decided to try and steal some of Freed's food. This would start a scuffle between the two. Now, Freed would have lost at this point in time, as Freed was weaker than Gagagigo. But just then, a portal to the different dimension, as shown in the card Dimensional Prison, opens up and traps Gagagigo in an alternate dimension. Now, it is unclear if this was Freed's doing, trying to stop Gagagigo, or the Invader of Darkness's doing, trying to capture Freed. As, in Freed's story, Freed had a bit of a rivalry with another card, Invader of Darkness. However, given the reaction of Freed in the card Double D Borderline, it may suggest that it wasn't Freed's doing. Regardless, this would lead to Gagagigo being stuck in the Dark World, as seen in the card Stumbling. He would later be captured and put on an altar for tribute in the card Altar for Tribute. However, the Invader of Darkness was impressed by the strength of Gagagigo, and decided to have a two-man cell battle between him and another card that I'll get into in this channel known as Inpachi, specifically Blazing Inpachi, to determine who would be the general for the Invader, as implied in the card Two-Man Cell Battle. However, in an attempt to save Gagagigo, Marauding Captain went to the Dark Dimension, and would end up saving him from Blazing Inpachi, saving Gagagigo's life as shown in the card My Body as a Shield. Now, it was also shown in the card art Unified Front. It showed the exact moment where Marauding Captain came in to help Gagagigo in the two-man cell battle. This would be the man to teach Gagagigo about justice. They would eventually escape and team up in many battles, one of them being a battle on the Goblin Attack Force's own HQ, as shown in the card art Assault on GHQ. Gagagigo would end up teaming up with the Captain once again and take on the Invader of Darkness. Unfortunately, this is where things took a turn for the worse. One of the captain's men from the card Exiled Force was being attacked by the Invader of Darkness, but Gagagigo would do what the captain did for him all those years ago and use his body to shield him, as shown in Absolute End and Spirit Barrier. The damage dealt to him was so devastating that he needed immediate medical attention. He would then be met by a terrible fate. Enter yet another card we'll get into, Kozaki. He was a mad scientist from the Dark World who would take Gagagigo and reconstruct his body as seen in Level Conversion Lab. This would amp Gagagigo's body with mechanical parts, turning him into Gagagigo. This card text read, "In order to fight tremendous evil, he gained formidable power through body reconstruction, but lost his heart and redemption. He wanted to serve justice, but thanks to Kozaki, Gagagigo became the one thing he sought to destroy: evil." This was the ultimate downfall of someone who only wanted justice. He was then ejected from the Dark World, as seen in Compulsory Evacuation Device and Monster Gate. He would then find Freed and sought revenge on him, as he blamed Freed for being sent to the Dark Dimension. Gagagigo also fought anything he came across as well, like Venom Cobra as seen in Ambush Fangs, but his ultimate goal was Freed. Freed was now known as the Matchless General, and was far stronger than he was when they first fought. He may have been physically stronger than Freed, but Freed had the better equipment, and easily defeated Gagagigo, as seen in Draining Shield and Death's Counter Blow. Gagagigo would then search out a way to be even stronger than Freed, and even stronger than the Invader of Darkness. Throwing out any part of his soul that he had left, he became even stronger, evolving once more into Gogiga Gagagigo. This card description reads, "His soul, long since collapsed, his body recklessly continues onward. Driven by a lust for more power, he no longer resembles his former self. Thus, a tragic downfall to the tranquil soul he used to be all those years ago." Gagagigo was now on a full revenge spree, targeting anyone who had ever beaten him in battle before, starting now with a broken and battered Woodborg Pachi, and the Invader of Darkness himself, slaughtering both and taking Pachi's head as a trophy, as seen in Memory of an Adversary. He then decided to fight and finally defeat Freed. Freed this time was no match for him, being beaten to a point where he could no longer even stand. Gagagigo would have had the opportunity to deliver the finishing blow to Freed, before being stopped by somebody he once knew. Marauding Captain would step in the way to stop Gagagigo from killing Freed, the one man who Gagagigo would call his friend still, the one who taught him his justice. Marauding Captain wanted to save his friend, as seen in Oath of Companionship. By reminding him of who he once was, and where he came from, and why he fights, Gagagigo now fights within himself to remember who he used to be, his friends, and his justice. He struggles within to decide to continue for his lust for power, or to return to his path of justice. He rose above who he is to become who he wanted to be all along, and finally becomes Gagagigo, the Risen, vowing an oath to only fight for justice to the end of his days. Now, Gagagigo does have more cards. However, it doesn't seem like the story being told on these cards has finished yet. So, for now, this is the end of his redemption story. So, we may not have seen the end to Gagagigo's story. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see me cover more Yu-Gi-Oh card lore, leave me which ones you want to see down below. Leave me all your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and consider subscribing for more if you guys enjoyed, and hit that notification bell for more videos like this. Also, check out all my socials in the description, as well as checking out my brand new Patreon if you guys want to support me further. And until next time guys, stay hype, stay awesome, stay weird, and be nice to each other. I'm Cybertech Werewolf, and I'll see you guys next time.